Hi there, and welcome back to another edition of ScaleUp Radio, the podcast inspired by the entrepreneurial scale-up system and designed to make navigating our scale-up journeys just that little bit easier by learning from others' experiences. I'm Kevin Brent, and this week on the show, I'm thrilled to dive into the dynamic world of multimedia publishing with Rick Mayston, who is the founder and managing director of Agent Fox Media. And he's got a great story behind the name. Join us as we explore Rick's decade-long journey from founding Agent Fox Media to revolutionizing the sector. Discover the passion-driven approach, the unique Beyond the Book initiative, and the fascinating collaborations with major brands like Marvel and Hachette. Rick shares insights on the evolving business model, ideal clients, and the crucial role of passion. So stay tuned as we uncover his key milestones, his learning curves, and the recent humbling nomination for a prestigious Entrepreneur Award. This is a conversation that you won't want to miss, packed with inspiration and entrepreneurial wisdom. And make sure you don't miss any future episodes by subscribing to ScaleUp Radio wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. And you can also nominate a guest for ScaleUp Radio if you know someone with an interesting scale-up story. You can find out how in the show notes below. So for now, let's scale up together with Rick Mayston on ScaleUp Radio. Welcome to another episode of ScaleUp Radio. I'm joined today by Rick Mayston, who is the founder and MD of Agent Fox Media. So, Rick, welcome to ScaleUp Radio.
Thank you very much. Very glad to be here.
So, tell us about Agent Fox Media. There's a bit of a clue in there, I guess, but what's it all about?
Well, I was director, the book publishing director for Europe for Getty Images for 17 and a half years. So originally I left after 6 months gardening leave to really set up as a traditional literary agent. But in those 6 months, it kind of took a turn where I became a multimedia broker. So instead of becoming a traditional literary agent, I launched an initiative called Beyond the Book. Okay. In March 2014 at the London Book Fair, whereby a book title could become a brand identity and we could put it into TV, dramatisations and documentaries, live Q&As, gallery exhibitions, etc., that would work as a extra revenue stream, but also promote the book itself. And it's kind of just taken off from there organically. Fantastic.
So can you give us an idea for the kind of brands you've been working with, the size of the business, something, how far have you come since 2014?
Well, we've been working with a lot of big brands. We've done some games with Marvel. I've worked with the big publishers such as Hachette. We do a lot of work with Hachette Livre and all their imprints, but also we ended up putting on some comedy with Jongleurs and probably one of the most high profile works that we did was a book called Gull with an award-winning Belfast photographer called Michael Donald, who I first met at Getty Images. Okay. And he'd spent 7 years going around the world and photographing all the living goal scorers that there'd been in World Cup finals.
Okay.
And it was an ESPN documentary. We then put it on as a gallery exhibition at not Alex Proud, but his brother Hector Proud's exhibition centre. It was at Hoban Studios, and we put it on in Hotel Football in Manchester.
Right.
And then when it came to the book, I managed to get it officially licensed by FIFA. And because it coincided with the Russian World Cup, when they did the draw for the World Cup in Russia, it was actually launched and at the Kremlin. So I'm not sure whether that's a good thing now, but at the time we were very excited about it. and it was given away to all of the FIFA sponsors. So working with FIFA was amazing because it became the official book of that World Cup.
Very nice. That's given us a really good illustration of the kind of thing that you do. I didn't catch the name of the book properly, actually. I think the audio cut a little bit. So.
It's called Goal, but the documentary was called I Scored a Goal in a World Cup Final. So they didn't think about that too much, but that was nothing to do with me.
Very good.
It did what it said on the tin.
Brilliant. And were you out in Red Square or something for the launch? Or
no, sadly not. We watched from afar. So no, I was stuck here. But what happened was that Hachette put covers on for each of the World Cup sponsors. So they had their own version of the book with a dust sheet of their own, and it was given away as a present in their goodie bags.
Nice. So how does the business model work for you then? How do you make your money?
The business model for us is based upon obviously the traditional agenting side, where we work with authors. But now we also work with artists, and we work with comedians, we work with entertainers. So obviously that's the usual agent's percentage. Okay. But we also put on our own events. So Agent Fox Media might be putting on a book launch, or we might be putting on a Q&A, or we might be putting on a gallery exhibition, and so it acts as an extra revenue stream, but it also promotes the book, hence the initiative beyond the book and how far that's come.
And who's your ideal sort of client, and what is it that they're really looking to achieve?
Our ideal client is somebody who really buys into multimedia and so not somebody who just wants to write a book and that's it. We really need them to open themselves up into promoting the book and making themselves higher profile. And then if possible, we can work with artists, we work with photographers, and we bring them together so that we can give the brand identity more platforms. So at the moment, for instance, we've got 13 books for next year.
Okay.
We are working with, I can't tell you too much about them, sadly, because they're all on NDAs, but
right, yeah.
but I can tell you that we're working with a UK schools program next year to take what we do into the academic world as well as the commercial world. So that's proved to be very exciting. And we're working with a couple of new content agencies, whereby those agencies are providing content that really lend themselves to book publishing and gallery exhibitions. So it's not just individual artists, it can be content agencies and doing something for them and just making sure that the subject matter is of interest to the public. What we do is B2B, but the end customer is always the consumer.
Yeah. And how do people find you? How do you find your clients?
Because we're B2B, I make a hell of a lot of use of LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So there we are. There's a plug for LinkedIn. No, it's excellent. People find us through LinkedIn, and we find other people through LinkedIn, and then it just becomes word of mouth.
Right.
So, we're working with a lot of celebrities, some of whom were my heroes growing up. So I'm like a kid in a candy store, to be honest. It's lovely working with they say never meet your heroes. Sometimes that's true, and I'm not going to mention any names, but most of the time it's wonderful to be able to work with people that I looked up to when I was in my teens and early 20s.
Yeah, very good. No, fantastic. And Is there anybody? Well, I mean, who are you? What sort of agencies are you competing with? What separates you? What makes you different and gives you an edge? Do you think?
I think our USP is that we haven't really got any real competition. That sounds incredibly big-headed, and I really don't mean it to be. But I don't know of anybody who, and this is because of all my years at Getty Images. I built up a contact list of galleries and authors and photographers, artists, newspapers, magazines. And I was incredibly lucky in that way that I never saw the book publishing department as a silo, and always tried to work alongside the other departments within Getty Images. And as a result, now we can broker multimedia deals that I don't think anyone else can. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that, because we've only been doing this for 10 years. There's people that have been literary agents for a hell of a lot longer, and some very well established literary agencies. But in terms of bringing people together and finding relevant revenue streams for a brand identity, I don't think there is anybody else out there doing that.
Right. So it sounds like through the experience that you had at Getty Images, you really built up the contact, but the expertise, and enabled you to position, when you started up, to position Agent Fox Media as something really quite different. You spotted a bit of a gap in the market, and you're able to then bring all of your expertise together to fill that gap.
I think I've always been quite entrepreneurial, and I think that's just something that comes naturally to me. And so I started to do that as an employee of Getty Images. I tried to look for things that were a little bit different and bringing people together. And so much so that I looked at some of I was overseeing a book publishing team, and very much they were expected to be reactive rather than proactive. So you'd wait for a publisher to call and say, we want these pictures and it's for this book, and then you'd license them.
Right.
So what I tried to do was to be proactive, to look at what events and anniversaries were coming up, and get the team to be proactive and actually make those calls themselves, and look at what was happening 5-6 years in advance, so that we could be ahead of the game. But also what I did was to find out if any of the staff themselves had good book ideas. And in fact, there was one guy on the picture desk who'd come up with this fantastic idea. He was photographing graves of famous people in London. And he wanted to call it from beyond the grave.
Yeah.
Anyway, I said, well, let's give it a snappier title, and see if I can sell it to a book publisher. So we called it Dead Famous, and we broke it up into areas. So because I wanted to try and sell it as an app on people's phones, so they could go and see where these famous people were buried, and it got commissioned. And so there was a member of our staff who wasn't paid to be a photographer, who actually had a photographic book. Likewise with our fashion expert, who was really into Japanese street fashion, and used to head out and take photographs of himself. And I sold that idea into Bloomsbury, so he got a book as well. And then I did books with some of the photographers. But wanted people to try to be proactive and to have their own ideas and to make life interesting for them as well.
Great, good. And have you built up a team now, or what's the team look like?
The team looks like myself and my wife.
Okay.
So I got married to Beverly during COVID. We met in 2019, got married in 2020. But Beverly has very, very different skill sets to me. So I used to just be a one-man band and run this on my own. But Beverly's background is very much with numbers and flowcharts and putting things together. So we complement each other. So I've made her a co-owner of the company. And when it comes to putting on events, Beverly's the one that makes sure that everything's right and the tickets are sold. And she likes to be in the background. Okay. I'm the big mouth at the front, but it works. And having her on board has really moved the business forward. So that's worked out very well. But her background is with financial companies and being a project manager and a program director for people like Norwich Union and British Transport Police, and very, very different. But the two skill sets come together.
So you combine the creative skill sets with then the project management and making sure all the stuff gets done. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned you started back in 2014. You had you spotted the opportunity when you're on gardening leave. So take us from there. You know, what have been some of the key milestones along your journey?
A lot of mistakes, which you have to make early on. I think
haven't we all? Yeah.
To learn. So I certainly made a lot of mistakes there, not least with our contracts and not having tight enough contracts. And now we only work with authors now who are prepared to promote their own books. I think the mistake that we made early on was working with people who wrote a good book, but then didn't want to do anything about it afterwards and thought that all the work would be done by the agent and the publisher. Right. So we don't work with them anymore because if the author doesn't have a passion for what they do, it's impossible to turn that into a multimedia project. So certainly those are the kind of things that we've learned along the way. And I would say that's a really important word for what we do is passion. All right. When you do what we do for a living, it's not a 9-to-5 job. And so we have to be passionate about what we do, and we have to have people around us who are passionate about what we do, and that has to come over in the project, and that's how it becomes successful. So I would say that's definitely something that's grown over the last 10 years. But really, when we started off, like I said, or when I started off, if you like, I just thought I was going to be a traditional agent, and organically I started to work with galleries and authors and photographers, anybody in that media world that I could bring together. So that the broker part of it really sort of happened naturally. It wasn't something that I forced. And now to work in the worlds of TV and film, and galleries, and it's just lovely being able to bring all of those people together and give them ideas as well, because that's what happens. It tends to give other people ideas of what how they can come out of what they thought their restrictions and limitations were.
Very good. So what are some of the things you think you got right that when you look back on it, you think, yep, that was a good move?
I think I stuck by my guns in terms of wanting to do multimedia. There were a lot of people who kept saying to me, "Oh, you should only concentrate on one thing, and you should either make up your mind to be a literary agent, or if you want to be an artist agent or a celebrity agent." And I stuck to my guns and said, no, if you bring these things together as a brand identity, we have all this multimedia here. Let's use it. And it's going to be a case of bringing people together. And touch wood, that has worked out very well. What I think I got wrong in the beginning, and this really comes down to the tightness of the contracts again,
Yeah.
is that when you do act as a broker and you introduce person A to person B, they can, if they're unscrupulous, work out that that if they get rid of you and deal directly with each other, then they can miss you out altogether. So we very quickly made sure that our terms and conditions knew that there was, let our clients know that there was a real value to what we are doing, and that we're not just bringing people together and then walking away. Right. The fact that we put on our own events, the fact that we, even as a literary agent, we don't just walk away. We say, look, we'll handle the book launches, we'll handle the Q&As, we'll contact the TV to talk about a dramatization or a documentary, and those people who have been worth working with and worth forming long-term relationships with, and thankfully there are a lot of those, have been the ones that have seen our value and haven't tried to do things behind our back. But it's just a sad fact of life that you have to put these things in writing legally, to make sure that everybody abides by the moral rules and the moral compass.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and at what stage did you put those legal documents together then?
I think it's things that we're always learning. Most of them we changed after the first year. We realised after the first year we just left ourselves too open, or at least I had. Beverly, wasn't around at the time, so I'd left myself too open. So I actually worked with my old friends in the legal department at Getty Images to help me put together some terms and conditions that would benefit our clients, but also tighten things up for us. But even in the last couple of years, we've still found loopholes that people have got around that we've had to tighten. So it's just the nature of being a small business, sadly, and there were always people ready to take advantage of you. But I don't want to come across as negative, because the majority of the people that we work with are absolutely wonderful, realise our value and work very well with us.
Yeah, and I would imagine the positioning that you've built enables some other advantages, like potentially if you were just a literary agent, then you're pigeonholed and you're competing against all the other literary agents that are around there. And I would imagine it becomes more a case of pricing and commissions. Whereas because you're offering a range of other services, does that enable a different kind of conversation around the value proposition?
Yes, it does, because a lot of we just take authors, for example. Authors, always see their books as going into dramatizations, and so we do attract a lot of them, but I have to say that the majority of them, I have to be realistic with them as to what is achievable. But working a lot as we do in non-fiction, it means that we've got quite a bit on next year, which sadly I can't talk about yet. But it's going well. I think we've got three TV program negotiations going on, based around books that we have, which are quite far along, all in different genres. But we do. I should have said that right from the very beginning. It's far easier working in non-fiction if you want to work with multimedia.
Okay.
Because that's what lends itself to gallery exhibitions. That's what lends itself to documentaries and historical dramatization. And so that is where we've really put ourselves. We do work with fiction writers, but I would say that we specialize in non-fiction.
So if there's people listening who've written a book, what kind of books fit your model better? You know, what
sports books, entertainment books, fashion books, history books.
Yeah.
All of those fit into the non-fiction world. But I mean, during COVID, we actually co-published for 2 years with a small publisher in Idaho. And one of those books was The Tower of Trek, written by a blogger who loved Star Trek. Now, immediately, he's got lots of followers, but he wrote about the whole the whole aspect of what Gene Roddenberry was trying to achieve when he originally wrote Star Trek, and then looked within this book at how many of those original stories have actually come true, and how you can look at his original ideas and also what's going on now in our lives. So sometimes dramatization reflects true life, and sometimes it's the other way around. What we did was to make sure that this book released in the year that would have been Gene Roddenberry's 100th birthday, so that we got media attention for Gene Roddenberry. And of course, you know, when coming back to what I said earlier, when you tie something into an anniversary or an event, often the media will do your work for you in terms of promotion.
Very good, very good. Yeah, it's I would imagine that's really interesting in seeing how essentially science fiction has almost led science. You know, there's that discussion, isn't there, around how much how much it actually leads the science in the.
If you look at those early Star Trek, how many people put their phones on loudspeaker and talk into it?
Yeah,
and that was happening on Star Trek in the 60s. So you know, it's life.
We had the Nokia flip phones, didn't we? Early on, which were, you know, a little bit like the communicators. Yeah. Yeah,
you'll see an awful lot in things like Star Trek, and I also worked with Brian Croucher, who was you'll see him on our YouTube channel, who was in Blake 7 as well, and you just see some things from those shows. And of course, they go to all the conventions, and you know, people that go to conventions, they are absolutely invested in those shows and know everything about them. And the people who were in them have to know everything about them to keep the people at conventions happy. But you look at a lot of what was happening in those shows in the early days. And those things, you know, those things we take for granted now.
Well, isn't
science fiction and now science fact?
Yeah, well, if you mentioned Blake 7, isn't ChatGPT essentially the early days of what's going to be ORAC?
Absolutely. Yeah, Absolutely. So we should be looking at those science fiction shows now to see what we're going to be getting in about 20, 30 years' time.
There's probably about 90% of the people listening going, Aurak? What on earth is Aurak? But anyway, we'll let them look it up. Yeah, absolutely. Good. So what do you love most about what you do then, Rick?
What I love most is that I think I've always been someone who loves what I do. I love working in the media. For 20 years, I was actually a graphic designer before I joined Allsport, which became Getty Images. And then obviously for the last 10 years, I've been agent Fox Media. But what I love about it is the crossover between my working life and my social life. And that sounds quite strange, probably, because there are times I love nothing more than to put my feet up and watch the television or go and watch football. But a lot of our social occasions are based around work. And what that means is that you enjoy getting up in the morning, and I love doing what I do. I'd love to be able to say I'd do it for free. For any clients listening, I won't. But nevertheless, it's wonderful to enjoy what you do and not to feel it's a chore. I'm 64 now, going on 65, and I still enjoy my work every bit as much as I always have.
Excellent. And you recently had some success, didn't you? You got nominated and shortlisted with the Great British Entrepreneur Awards.
Yeah, that was a huge surprise. I'm not even sure who. I don't even know who actually put us forward.
Okay.
But we were finalists in the last 6 for the East of England, because our office is based in Hertford, in Hertfordshire. And East of England family business family business entrepreneur of the year, and we didn't win, but just to be nominated in the last 6, and there were thousands of entries, I think was amazing, and yeah, we're very humbled by the fact that such a small company such as ourselves has achieved enough for us to have that kind of visibility.
Yeah, very good. No, absolutely. Real congratulations for that. So we've covered what you love most. What frustrates you? What would you change if you could? The current situation. This is probably going to alienate people that are listening. But I'm going to be totally honest. The current situation is that commissioning editors, they really need to tick a lot of hashtag boxes. Right.
And whilst we absolutely, totally believe in diversity and 100% behind it, what we're seeing is a lot of people who don't tick those boxes being out of work.
Okay.
And it means that sometimes the best people for the job don't get the job. And that can be in publishing, it can be in TV, it can be in film, it can be artists. And we're seeing an awful lot of people who are not on that box tick list at the moment, and quite often they're the people that we really want to work with. What we'd love to see is a true level playing field, where those that are best for the job, regardless of their gender, regardless of their ability, their colour, their religion, we'd just like to see the best person get the job. And I think that in a lot of areas that's not happening at the moment. That's my real frustration.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And I understand where you're coming from. We can go too far, can't we, on the politically correct?
Yeah, I think what I would love is a real level playing field, and it's clear in the past that we never had that level playing field, and that people didn't get opportunities. But now to go completely the opposite way and make sure those people who didn't get opportunities in the past are the only people getting the opportunities, for me, is not a level playing field. Let's give everybody a fresh start and just put the right person for the job in that job, whatever they happen to be.
Yeah. Okay, good. So looking back over the time that you've been running Agent Fox Media, was that deliberately so that it's AFM, by the way? Was that the idea? The acronym AFM?
AFM. No, but the reason it was called Agent Fox Media was because your listeners can't see me, but I've got white hair and often get taken for Mitch Winehouse, which is probably the best way I can explain myself because it happens a lot. But at Getty Images, a lot of my clients knew me as the Silver Fox. So when I left Getty Images and I wanted to tap into a lot of the people I'd already been working with, I was going to call the company Silver Fox. And then I found that there's probably 1 million Silver Fox companies around the world. And so I didn't want to get lost in that. And then because I used to be a graphic designer, I came up with the idea of calling myself Agent Fox. And the logo of Agent Fox is from the periodic table. So the AG of Agent Fox is Argentum. Yeah. So anybody that goes onto our website, which is www.agentfoxmedia.com, will see the logo and see that the AG of the logo is from the periodic table and says silver underneath. So I tied into the Silver Fox part of it by calling it Agent Fox and using the Argentum from the periodic table. And then people said to me, "Oh, you copied Breaking Bad." And I'd never seen Breaking Bad, but I then looked at Breaking Bad and I thought, well, that's got a few fans, so it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, if it's good enough for them. Good, nice story, love it. So what, if anything, would you change with a bit of hindsight if you went back and you could do things a bit differently? What if anything would you change?
I would have married Beverly earlier. And she makes a wonderful wife, but she also makes a very good business partner.
Right.
And yeah, to be honest, her skill sets were maybe what I was missing at the time. I wanted to put all these multimedia platforms together, but there were skill sets that maybe I was missing at the beginning. So having her on board, I really, really appreciate the fact that we work very well together as a team. And it's brought a lot of success, of extra success, so since she's been with me. So yeah,
Great.
I probably would have got married to Beverly a lot earlier.
Fantastic. Well, Beverly will like hearing that, I'm sure, as well. So what's the legacy that you want to leave, Rick? Or what, maybe if we're looking 5 years time or something, what does success look like for you?
I'd very much like to be remembered as someone who tried to bring a lot of multimedia platforms together, and but mainly I think I'd like to be remembered for somebody who even when I was at Getty Images, just tried to make people's lives more interesting, their working lives more interesting. So for me, we work so many hours, all of us, and it's really important that those hours are enjoyable and that the people we work with are people that we enjoy working with. And that's what I've tried to do, whether they be colleagues or whether they be clients. I've tried to make the journey enjoyable, and I think I would like to be remembered for that more than anything else.
Excellent. Here. Good. So, well, it's been fascinating talking with you, Rick. Are you all right for a couple of quick fire questions before we wrap it up?
I'll give it a go.
Brilliant. So, if you could go back to your younger self, what advice would you give yourself?
probably spend more time learning things academically and less bunking off to go and play football. But yes, probably I would spend a little bit more time in the classroom than I did.
Brilliant. So here's a question I ask everybody, but it seems particularly pertinent for you. Which books or podcasts would you recommend to our listeners?
Oh, there's a good one. My favourite book was always Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. But I also love the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books. Yeah. So they would be my recommendation, because I really lost myself in those. And at school, of course, I was reading all the Hardy novels, Far from the Madding Crowd, and I probably appreciate that more in later life than I did when I was younger. In terms of podcasts, well, I definitely ask people to go onto our YouTube channel and see In the Fox's Den. So have a look at those. But I have to admit, I'm going to lose a few more listeners now. I'm a big Spurs fan, and the Spurs Show with Mike Lee is a fantastic podcast, and I've appeared on there a few times, but I think it's the best of the Spurs podcasts. So I tend to when I get time to listen to that. And brilliant. I have to say, of course, now yours.
Well, of course, thank you for that. Yeah.
Yes. So that's added to my list and ticked another box.
Very good. All right. Are you into technology at all? Are there any particular apps or bits of software that you found particularly useful?
Yeah, I found one recently called Temu, which is a shopping. I'm giving all these people free advertising, but no, they do some really, really good stuff cheaply, and I sent away for some stuff recently, and it's a bit hit and miss. Some of it's real cheap, and I won't say the word. But a lot of it is actually quite good. So it's worth having a look at. And if you've got lots of grandchildren, maybe, it's and it's an expensive world out there for grandparents with lots of grandchildren. They might want to have a little look at that.
Very good.
But I've got loads of apps on my phone, and I use all the same ones that everybody else does, obviously, and the fantasy football, obviously. Then that always takes up a little bit of my free time.
Good. And you've already mentioned LinkedIn as being really useful for you from a lead generation point of view, finding people, relationships, customers. Anything? Is that your most successful tactic? You think, marketing tactic?
I think that's where it started off, and then afterwards it becomes word of mouth, and people contact you because other people have used you. I've always thought when you try and buy anything online, or you try to use a service online, and you've got things like TripAdvisor, it's always people's friends and family who tend to write on that. So you never really know if anyone's ever good. I think, to be honest, what you should look is for repeat usage. If people have used you more than once, that's what shows when your clients like you. So if you've got long-term relationships, then and people use you time and time again, or you can work with people time and time again, I think that is the best indication of a company that's good to work with.
Very good. Excellent. So, Rick, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you this afternoon. If people would like to get hold of you or find out more about Agent Fox Media, what's the best way for them to do that?
There's a website, www.agentfoxmedia.com, We have a YouTube channel, which I think has 25, 26, 20, 27 videos on, where I've interviewed people like Samantha Fox and Dean Friedman, Jess Conrad, Owen Paul, Mickey Hazard from Spurs. There's all sorts of people on there. And just recently, there's a live one that I did with the actor Neil Pearson from Drop the Dead Donkey and Bridget Jones' Diary. He's also a rare book collector and dealer, and he archived all of the diaries for Alan Rickman. So that particular In the Fox's Den, which the YouTube channel is called, you will see me interviewing Neil on stage about all the work that he did with Alan Rickman's family to bring Madly Deeply, the Alan Rickman diaries, to life. So that's definitely worth seeing. And we'll be doing more live ones in the past now COVID's over. We tended to use Zoom just during the time that we were on lockdown.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you very much, Diederik. It's been a pleasure to have you on ScaleUp Radio
It's
today.
been an absolute pleasure for me. It's gone very, very quickly. So thank you, Kip.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.